So let's begin the meditation, as always, by tuning into just how it is to be here, now. How is it in the body? How is this body doing right now? How is it in the mind? The emotions? Might we simply say hello to this body as it is, this mind as it is, these emotions? It's like this right now, being me. Notice that this body is breathing. It knows how to breathe all by itself. And because we are people and not grasshoppers, we can tune the body, we can tune the mind in ways that nourish us and help us to flourish. We're not victims of whatever it is that's happening, whatever our experience is. And of course, to tune any instrument we need to know how it is. So we begin by tuning into how it is. So the meditation that I'll offer, the contemplation really at the beginning of this meditation, is it comes from something that Ajahn Suchito has offered on tuning the mind. So cultivating wholesome, nourishing, happy states of mind. We're invited to keep looking for nourishment that is a refuge for us when things are hard. The Buddha, for a long time, tried to operate in his spiritual practice without nourishment, and he finally saw how useless that was, that he needed to nourish himself in all kinds of ways in order to find balance in this human life of ours. So his teaching is a teaching about balance and nourishment. Just as in the Buddhist time, the world can seem kind of harsh and bleak. The mind can feel gritty and heavy, overwhelmed at times. We're invited to release any fixation with those gritty and tangled thoughts that float through and sometimes take up residence in our minds. I'm not good enough. In all its different iterations of ways that there's something wrong and we're not good enough. For example, lots of other ways that we can get fixated. We can get fixated on things that are happening outside of us that are not good enough, according to the mind's way of thinking about things. So we're not invited to make that stop so much as to relax and release any fixation on that gritty stuff, because it doesn't nourish us. It's like eating sand or rocks. It's just not nourishing. How do we do that? How do we cultivate a mind that's light and spacious, open and soft, even in the midst of difficulty? We practice with the quality of our intention and the quality of our attention, intention and attention. Kind of understanding that the mind is sort of like a computer search engine that searches for something to pay attention to. And we can have an intention to, if you will, program into the search engine that we search for what is wholesome. And an intention to release fixation. Fixation, not the arising, but fixation on what is not wholesome. You can have an intention to program into this little mind's search engine an intention to search for what is wholesome. For example, if we were searching for something terrible, we could easily find that, I suppose. But it matters where we direct our gaze. We can type in gratitude. Or faith. We can type in appreciative joy or just joy. And let this little mind computer search for those experiences. We don't have to worry about whether or not it makes sense or it's complete or You don't have to worry about any of that. We're simply invited to have an intention to look for what is nourishing, what tends to, if you will, I sometimes think about ironing out some of the wrinkles in my mind, or in the analogy that Ajahn Suchito uses, having a net um, that catches what is wholesome and has holes that release the little fish that are unwholesome, and letting them go back into wherever it is they go. We can contemplate, for example, the community of care, like even something like hmm, how many people made the clothes that I'm wearing? What if all those people who made all of the clothes that we each are wearing, what if they all were in this room? Well, that's silly. They couldn't begin to fit. There are so many. The people who made them, the people who made the materials for them, the people who put them together, the people who brought them to us. We can contemplate the web of connection and care that we live in, the food, those yummy tomatoes that we had for dinner, the peaches, the chocolate chip cookies. Consider all of the beings who have enabled us to be here tonight. And we can cultivate a sense of appreciation that we are cared for. Many of us are familiar with the contemplations of the Metta Sutta. May all beings be well. May all beings in every direction be well. And it is said that at any moment, there are beings in the world who are chanting that. We can receive their blessing, their wish, that we be well, that we be safe and free from danger. At this very moment, there are people sending us those blessings. May we have minds that are strong and clear and hearts that are open and peaceful. May we be happy. There are people at this very moment throughout the world who are wishing each of us happiness. We can have an intention to receive it, that wish, that care. We can have gladness just to be a human being and to be part of a circle and that enables us to care and help one another, to receive help from one another. I received some beautiful guidance from a dear friend of mine today. How wonderful is that? We each did. How wonderful is that? We can invite the mind to calm and nourish and soothe, and thus to have that impact on our whole nervous system, our whole body. We're training in intention to soften and brighten and extend the brightness of the mind, throwing out the net to pick up the good and the bright and allowing the hard and sticky stuff that's gotten caught in the folds of the contracted state and that leave us out of balance, allowing that sticky stuff just to pass without picking it up. You just don't have to pick it up. We can relax and have an intention to rest in something big and boundless, nourishing. And we can notice that we're doing this together as a community. How wonderful is that? So for the rest of the meditation, I invite you to follow an intention, a little search engine. What is nourishing for me right now? No matter how tiny, how apparently mysterious, how apparently insignificant. What is nourishing for me right now? And might I receive it and feel it in this body? Let it soothe this mind. In this practice, we are training the mind. We have an intention to train the mind to be nourished by what is wholesome and to release what is sticky or gritty or unnourishing. And so, if there are any thoughts in the mind that sometimes we have thoughts we're not doing this quite right or quite well enough, those are the little sticky and gritty fish that we can release and let them go. And see if there might be some appreciation for your simply being here, practicing with an intention that your life be nourished. See if there might be even a tiny glimmer of appreciation for your own being in that way. And if so, see if you might allow the body to receive the goodness of that blessing. It's okay. We're good enough. So, refuge, remembering refuge, and also remembering my intention that it's a bit of a commercial for our refuge retreat, remembering refuge retreat. You and I have won the lottery. Really, we've won the lottery. We have this precious human life. We'll talk a little more about it in a minute, but this precious human life. And in this precious human life, we have the capacity to not only look for refuge, but cultivate ways of resting in true refuge as human beings. You know, the little bunny in my yard doesn't have that capacity, unfortunately. The little squirrel that I scolded in the parsley today doesn't have that capacity to really kind of cultivate wholesome, nourishing states of mind and body. But you and I have won the lottery. We can do that. But we forget. We forget how precious this human life is. The Dalai Lama says, all of our difficulties result from mistaken perception. We forget, we misperceive that when there is stress or difficulty, we think that's it, you know, that our job is somehow to hang out in it or that we're victims of it. So we misperceive. All of our difficulties, the Dalai Lama says, result from mistaken perception. Sort of like when we were little and, I don't know, what are, all the different things that we misperceived. So all of our difficulties result from mistaken perception. I find that very nourishing and encouraging, because if if all these difficulties result from mistaken perception, then we just need to kind of clean up our perceptions a little bit, and we're good. Huh? So yay. So the teachings invite us to remember that difficulty and unsatisfactoriness, stress, are invitations to inquire. What am I not understanding? What am I misperceiving here? When I'm stuck in the grittiness, the stress of life. Not like, oh, this is so stupid, I should be enlightened already, and, I should be better. That is not what we're talking about. But as human beings, we have the capacity to inquire. The Buddha says that even this, I can find freedom from suffering in even this, whatever this is. So let's get to work. Let's inquire here. How do I do that? I'm a human person. I'm not only capable of hearing sounds, I'm not only capable of hearing teaching and making sense of the words, but I can contemplate them and use them to guide my learning. You and I have won the lottery, this precious human life. So not only living and breathing, but this capacity to we've been born into favorable circumstances. For sure, huh? Here we are. We're in this building, and I bet not one of us this evening has yet worried that a bomb is going to fall on us. Wow, that's pretty favorable. And probably, well, most of us have had dinner that was satisfactory. Huh? Wow, that's pretty favorable. Huh? And we have clothes to wear. And we can talk to one another. And somebody brought us cookies. Who brought us cookies tonight? Jane, did you? Jane brought us cookies. Yay, Jane. What a favorable circumstance. So not only are we born into a human life, but you and I have been born into favorable circumstances. Well, that's cool. And not only favorable circumstances, but a place where the teachings of the Dharma are available to us. Other times of history, now, I mean, you could, it's almost overwhelming, isn't it? How much of the Dharma is available. You Google something and you get 4,317 references, mostly in English. But not only in favorable circumstances, but especially favorable that we have teachings that aim to end suffering. Whoa, that's pretty cool. Not only is the Dharma available, but we're interested in it. Here you are. Here I am. So we're human, we can think, we can learn, we can grow, we can investigate. We have favorable circumstances. We're not out scrounging for food at this very moment or hiding in a bomb shelter. We're interested in the Dharma. The Dharma is available and we're interested in it. And not only are we interested and curious, but we have time and opportunity to study and practice. the blessings keep mounting up, don't they? We have won the lottery. Where does it get better than this, really? The Buddhist teachings offer us freedom, freedom from suffering. Freedom from suffering. They offer us to investigate when there are difficulties, what is it that we are misperceiving? And if we can understand what we're misperceiving, perhaps change some of our practices and ways of relating to what's happening, we can have freedom from stress. Where does it get better than this? But we can get lost in the inevitable stress of living in this human life. Its impermanence, things change. You were eating cookies a little while ago and now you're not, and those macaroons are gone. You know, things change. We're not in control. Have you ever noticed? We're not in control of what happens either in our bodies or in the world. So there really is stress. It's difficulty. It's difficult. And a key part of our practice is remembering refuge, remembering true refuge, so that we can keep coming back to refuge. So I wanted to just pause for a second. When I use that word refuge, which I've said about 24 times so far tonight, what comes to mind? What does refuge mean for you? What's a refuge? Dina? Safety. Thank you. Anybody else want to just popcorn it out like Dina did? What? A place to rest. Safety, a place to rest. Refuge. Security. Thank you. Anything else? Protection, shelter. What did you say, Gary? Oh, protectability. Protection. Is that what did I hear you right, Clay? Yeah. Got to remember my ears here. I'm an old lady. Other? Refuge, safety, protection, security. Reliability. Thank you, Dina. Yeah. So refuge. So we're looking for safety, for protection, for reliability, for security. Of course we are. Of course we are. What a good thing that is. I mean, can we really touch into the goodness of the intention to look for all of those things? Of course. Of course. When things change, when things are difficult, let's do a little popcorn again. What do people tend to take refuge in? Where do we tend? And I don't mean necessarily, you don't have to like confess your secret addiction. Not that I have any. You don't have to, you don't have to do that, but just let's think theoretically. Like I could theoretically say that somebody might be addicted to a puzzle game on their computer. I could theoretically say something like that, as a way of kind of dealing with maybe a little, tiredness or stress or overwhelm. What other things, do people look to for refuge, for safety, for security, for protection? Withdraw things. Here's Tim. Consumption of any, what did you say? Any and everything, chocolate cookies, ice cream, pizza, clothes. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Travel, Rebecca? What? Social media. travel, it's like I have to keep moving. I have to keep traveling. Marriage, relationship, cleaning, what, or organizing and cleaning, obsessive, yeah, organizing and cleaning. If I just get my world in order, everything will be fine. Yeah. Money, need more. Power, need more. Drugs, yeah. Food, booze. I'll take either, huh? Yeah. So we tend to take refuge in things that actually don't quite work. And they don't quite work because they don't quite work. You know? They don't really give us any sense of, ultimate safety or ultimate protection or ultimate security. They might kind of tune us out periodically, um, but they just don't quite really give us a reliable. Somebody said, refuge is reliable, and they don't give us a sense of a reliable way of ending stress. But all of our difficulties result from mistaken perception, and on a day-to-day basis, many of us, if not most of us, if not all of us, look for refuge in some of these um, places where it doesn't really quite work. If my relationship is difficult, my life is ruined. If whatever, my travel plans, those people who today had to evacuate the Outer Banks, if my vacation is ruined, if my vacation is changed, my life is ruined, so that we tend to just rely on things for our happiness and then see that when they don't quite work or when life has a way of having its own plans, then we suffer. There's stress. So it's important, I think, to recognize the goodness of the intention, even in those circumstances. So the intention to relieve stress by drugs or alcohol or travel or overwork or cleaning obsessively. I don't have that problem. Um, uh, um, just the intention is wholesome. The actual way of going about it is a mistaken perception, is a mistaken idea. It's like when we were little children, and when I was a little child, I sometimes have told this story. When I was a little child, I was instructed not to use my brother's Monopoly game. I was about, I don't know, 8 or something, which of course I did one afternoon when I was home alone, eating a popsicle in much the way that I'm holding this microphone, hanging over the Monopoly board while I was looking at it and dropping some stray popsicle pieces onto the cardboard Monopoly board, which I was not supposed to be looking at. And so my mistaken perception was, I think a little Ajax will help. But we're like that, it's like maybe just a little cleanser will blot out this problem that I'm having, because I'm kind of scared I'm really going to be in trouble about this Monopoly game, which I wasn't supposed to have out in the first place. Not that I ever did anything wrong. So the Buddha invites us to look for refuge, wholesome refuge, in a way that could possibly work. Not a bad offer, right? So again, remembering that we've won the lottery, that we're in wholesome circumstances, we don't have to spend this evening in a bomb shelter or running away from a hurricane or looking for food in the garbage cans. That we're here, we have these opportunities to look for refuge in a wholesome way. Awesome. The Buddha gave a teaching on the refuges, and I won't go into the whole teaching, but The commentary on the teaching ends this way. He says the Buddha, the commentary says, the Buddha delivered this jewel discourse as a mark of protection and refuge, as a mark of protection and refuge, a mark of protection and refuge. You know, that a mark of protection, there were, let's see, what was the circumstance? Oh, the city was affected by a famine, and it caused a lot of death, especially among the poor. And so there were all these corpses laying around the city. And the people felt that there were evil spirits connected to the corpses. And so everybody was getting a little kind of freaked out about the sickness, the death, the corpses, the stench, and the evil spirits. And so the Buddha gave the teaching on refuges in this circumstance, and as a way of teaching about protection, and solace. And indeed, after he gave this particular teaching, there were torrential rains and all the corpses were washed away. So it was kind of a nice omen about the teachings on the refuges. The Buddha advised, Ajahn Sucitto says, the Buddha advised the recollection of the Buddha, 3 refuges, a refuge in the Buddha, refuge in the Dharma, refuge in the Sangha, in order to give rise to gladness and confidence. Some of you said that even the little meditation that we did earlier gave rise to a bit of gladness and confidence. Yay. You know, making that comes from a meditation that's Ajahn Sucitto offered on refuge in mind, you know, making the mind a refuge. So the Buddha gave the teaching on refuges in order to give rise to gladness and confidence. And I love this from Ajahn Sucitto. He says that sometimes when we recollect the 3 refuges, refuge in the Buddha, refuge in the Dhamma, and refuge in the Sangha, in the backs of our minds, or more accurately, even beneath our conscious thought, we actually hold back from following the refuges, because the Buddha in our minds means this guy who lived like a really long time ago in a culture that was very different from ours, has no clue what we're dealing with now. And besides, he was an entirely different being, way different from me. So forget about it. You know, that's all very nice, but it has nothing to do with my life today. As I look at social media, it has nothing to do with it. So we think of the Buddha as this kind of irrelevant, really. I mean, it's very nice and something that theoretically I should aspire to, but forget about it. The Dharma is something that I don't really understand very well. And anyway, I haven't gotten very far with it. And anyway, when things get really tough, I forget all about it and watch more TV, or complain more, or criticize myself more, or play computer games, or sleep more, or drink more, and then I criticize myself about all of that. So the Dharma is it's like a whole bunch of rules, you know, that I'm supposed to follow in order to be good. You know, so we tend to think about the Dharma in that way and really don't find refuge in it. You know, it's like, who wants to just have a bunch of rules on the refrigerator that we actually don't follow all that well? And the Sangha, refuge in the Sangha is the refuge in the community. Historically, it means the refuge in monastics and in people, you know, who are enlightened. And it also has come to mean the refuge in ordinary community, like us together. So we can think of refuge in the Sangha, or community, is a bunch of people who belong to something, who are more advanced than me, who are somehow all comfortably connected to one another, and who form a group that I'm not really an important part of anyway. So we can kind of have these kind of notions of even those three refuges in ways that are kind of debilitating and limiting. So we'll talk a little bit tonight and then more in the retreat about the refuges. And again, remembering Ajahn Suchito's words that the Buddha advised the recollection of the Buddha, taking refuge in the Buddha, taking refuge in the Dhamma, and taking refuge in the Sangha in order to give rise to gladness and confidence. He wants us to give rise to gladness and confidence, and it is with that gladness and confidence that we then are able to navigate the challenges of this human life. We've won the lottery. We have the opportunity to learn how to do that. How amazing and blessed is that? Mm. So, a couple of words about the refuges themselves. Then we'll continue at the retreat. Refuge in the Buddha. The Buddha means one who knows, the personification of wisdom. That's what Buddha means. Wisdom that is not kind of embodied in a person is kind of abstract for us to kind of wrap our heads around. So we think of it as embodied in a particular person. It's hard to conceive of a bodiless wisdom, and so we use the Buddha as a symbol for wisdom. I'll read something. I think this is from, it's from Ajahn Sumedho, not Ajahn Suchito, different Ajahn. This is a quote, it doesn't mean we only take refuge in some historical prophet, but in that which is wise in the universe, in our minds, that which is not separate from us, but is more real than anything we can conceive with the mind or experience through the senses. We call it Buddha wisdom. Other people can call it other things. We're just using the term Buddha wisdom as a conventional symbol to help remind us to be wise, to be alert to wisdom, to be awake. When there is wisdom, when we act wisely and live wisely, we are truly safe. We don't avoid mistakes, but we have the presence of mind now to reflect on and learn from life as we live it, knowing the nature of conditions, impermanence, things change. Nature of conditions, we're not in control. Try that one on with respect to the politics in our world today. Both, impermanence. We're not in control. Where's wisdom? Knowing the nature of conditions and of change, humbly submitting to that wisdom. But we forget. We habitually take refuge in worry, doubt, fear, anger, greed, thoughts, views, and opinions, our loves and hates, our self-conceit, and our pride. So if we contemplate the Buddha, what is the touching? What kind, how do we contemplate wisdom, the presence of wisdom, and your own recognition of knowing wisdom when it arises in your own experience and when you hear it and see it in others? Anybody, as you contemplate, I see a lot of frowns, so contemplate a little bit. Can you recognize wisdom when you hear it? Anybody? Thoughts about recognizing Buddha and taking refuge in it? Do you read anything? Do you hear anything? I actually had a wonderful experience. I was writing something and I really liked it a lot. And I asked my husband to read it. And he gave it back to me and he said, "This is really good. Except you're not you're not really telling the truth." Oh, that. He said, "You're not really talking about how hard it's been. You're making it sound too simple." It was such a wise thing to say. And I took that and really, he was really right. I was just sort of I was being a little flippant about it. And I wasn't really telling the truth. What a gift to get the gift of that wisdom, because it then helped me see something that enabled me to drop a little deeper into what's true, what's really true. How do I speak to what's true? Now I could go in the other direction and go, "Oh, woe is me. This was so terrible. It was awful." And that isn't what he was suggesting. He was suggesting that I speak to it in a way that actually could offer some insight into, this is Sharon. This isn't some person who's any different from any of us, any of you. No different. Little grasshopper sitting in the bushes trying to make sense of my life. And he said, "I know you, and I know it's been a challenge to work with us." Wisdom is contemplating the one who knows. When you know how even in the news each day, you can read something or hear one of the podcasts and you go, "Oh my goodness, thank you so much. That is so helpful." You know, and you can listen to some YouTubes or some podcasts and you go, "Oh my goodness, this really pisses me off and gets me really stuck in a hole." You know, so which is wise. Hmm? So really, but notice that that if you pay attention and have an intention for wholesomeness, you know. What is wise. So refuge in the Dharma. I'm going to read to you what the suttas say about the Dharma and how we recognize refuge in the Dharma. The Dharma is, I won't read the Pali words, is wisdom that is imminent. It's in the here and now. It's not some theory about how you're supposed to be or how you used to be yesterday or how you're going to be tomorrow. The Dharma is the wisdom that is present in the here and now, that is timeless, not bound by any condition. Our conceptual mind can't conceive of timeless wisdom because our conceptions are time-based. Notice that we all have, stories and ideas and views and that was what my husband was challenging me about, that we have stories and ideas and views that come from our childhood. And I was writing about that. And he said, "Yeah, it's not been that simple, sweetheart. Get a grip, go deeper." Um, wisdom that is leading towards peace. When we berate ourselves, when we give ourselves a really hard time, that's different, than me seeing, "You're right. I'm doing something that I could be more skillful. I have to work just a little bit harder to find the words to speak to that," which is different from saying, "Oh, I'm so stupid. I'm a terrible writer." Really quite different. What's leading to peace? Um, and it's only known through wisdom that is only known through direct experience, like the taste of honey. Somebody could explain to you from now till the cows come home what honey tastes like. You only know it when you actually do it, when you actually taste it. So really looking for and having an intention to look for your own knowing what's deeply true, and then practicing that. So practicing it is what the Dhamma is about. It gives us 84,000, I'm told, ways of practicing with the teachings. May this be a cause for awakening, whatever it is that we're caught with. We learn how to relate to difficulties in a new way, and this protects us from confusion and despair. May this be a cause for awakening. May we know ourselves when we get off balance, when we be aware of that. There's wisdom in seeing that. May we see and listen and reflect and humbly submit to our own deepest wisdom. You know that moment when you want to say something to your spouse or your parent or your child or that person who cut you off in traffic. You know that moment, and that you have to decide what's wise. That's what they're talking about. And the Sangha, the community, two kinds again. The ordained and teaching Sangha and the ordinary Sangha. Members of our practice community. In general, we tend to minimize the importance of the ordinary Sangha. Buddha is a big deal, Dharma is a big deal, and Sangha is something to put up with. Ajahn Chah famously said that he could go off into the mountains and achieve immense states of serenity. And when it came, but he deliberately created monastic communities because he said they pissed him off. And he knew that he had work to do. And so he deliberately came back to the monastic communities to live in relationship and in the Sangha and learn from being in relationship with other people. So the Sangha, ways that other people help guide us, either by giving us nourishment and support, or by kind of kindly, and my husband was enormously kind about it, kindly showing us where we could do a little better. Yay. We have access to a community, and we have access to a community here of people who have the same intention as we do. No matter how intimate we feel or closely connected. We're going to have to stop there. I'm sorry. You have to come to the retreat to have more time for you to speak. I wanted to end with, often when I've been on retreat with Amma Tanasanti, we beg her at the end of the evening to chant us to bed. So I wanted to give you that gift tonight of hearing her chanting, because what she is chanting are the refuges. And she's chanting refuge in the Buddha, whatever beings are here assembled, whether terrestrial or celestial, we salute the perfected Buddha, revered by gods and men, may there be well-being. And similarly with the Sangha, whatever beings are here assembled, or with the Dhamma, whatever beings are here assembled, whether terrestrial or celestial, we salute the perfected Dhamma, the perfected teachings, revered by gods and men, may there be well-being. And the Sangha, whatever beings are here assembled, whether terrestrial or celestial, we salute the perfected Sangha, revered by gods and men. And so we're going to let Amma sing us home tonight with Brianna's help.
Yani Rabodani Samangatani Umani Vayani Vayatariki Tatagetam Deva Manu Sabujita Tatagetam Deva Manu Sabujita Anida Bhutani Samangatani Mumari Vayani Vayatariki Tathagetam Deva Manu Sapujita Sangha Namasama Sutiyahotu.
May there be well-being. By the power of these truths, by the power of these refuges, may our suffering subside. May you sleep well. Blessings.